Hello, and welcome to Right to Be Wrong, the show that revives the art of conversation, accommodating varied views on sports, culture, politics, world events, and every topic under the sun. After all, you have a right to be wrong. Here are your hosts, Dave and Tony.
Tone, last episode I gave you the helmet because there's a little bit of punching, top turnbuckle, bit of bruising. As viewers can see, the helmet is gone. We're back to being civil and nice to one another. By the way, you're still in the top echelons of the smart people I know. You didn't drop.
That says more about you, Dave, than it does about me.
Yeah, I'm swimming in a very shallow pool. How you been?
Good. All good, Dave. Here's another background for you. Picture this, Dave. It's 11:47 p.m. Your laptop glows in the dark. You're answering an email marked urgent from a client you've never met about a project you stopped caring about weeks ago. Your phone pings. It's your work chat. A teammate's already online because they're in a different time zone, and the cycle never stops, Dave. But here's the question. Has corporate culture crossed the line from driving progress to driving us into the ground, or is it just a convenient villain for a society that's already been sick, Dave?
Well, it actually sounds like one of those IT scams. You know, they test you.
Yes.
And they tell you it's from someone you don't know and it's marked urgent and we need to transfer $1.25 million urgently, and they tell you they've already spoken to the boss. So it sounds like one of those scams. But no, what you're getting at is the 24/7 nature of the laptop world, corporate world, professional class. I think it is making us sick. I think there's a lot of people that are very caught up in their job and forget that you are working to live, not living to work. It's the old.
Which we've touched on in the previous episode, yeah?
We have.
Yeah. So, Dave, let's break it down. What do we mean by corporate culture? So, what do we mean by culture? Norms, values.
The norms and values.
Yeah.
Correct.
So effectively,
society.
It's the unwritten rule, right? Like the rules or the norms and values of an organization aren't necessarily written on a piece of paper somewhere, but it's how corporates act. It's the expectations they have of each other, right? And how they behave towards each other. And that all influences how the employee performs and how the organization performs.
It also today it's starting to attempt to influence how society thinks and acts.
That's right.
Which is another aspect I think we need to touch on this episode.
That's right. So can these leaders of profit-making corps or profit-making entities, are they toxic to individuals and communities?
Yes, because I saw the CEO of Westpac today was talking about, or I saw an article today, I don't know if he'd said this today, but he was talking about, a real big shake-up of the culture at Westpac. And how, he was talking about the way he worked and his expectation that some people will come in on weekends and how things will be driven. And I thought, Westpac, you've got the wrong guy in charge, because he thinks the way he works is the way everyone should work. Now, I agree with the old adage of don't ever ask your staff to do something you wouldn't do yourself and lead by example. But how do we know that this guy's wife, assuming he has one, his kids, assuming he has them, they can't stand him or he never sees them or whatnot? We're putting him on a pedestal because, look at me, I'll come into the office on weekends. I will make sure that I work 24/7 and that's what I expect from my staff. Mate, seriously, I read that and I just thought, you're a dickhead. You have your priorities all wrong. I thought I would never go and work at Westpac while he was in charge.
But the thing for me, Dave, is the CEO comes out and says that. If I was a board member of Westpac, I'd be going, we've got our CEO basically saying he's going to flog his people.
Yeah.
Right?
I thought it was terrible.
He could have framed that in a different way, right? He could have said, we're expecting to build.
I'll see. Well, you keep talking. I'm going to see if I can find the exact.
We want to build a high-performance culture. What's high-performance mean? Committed people who are assisting our customers achieve their goals. And assisting Westpac achieve the shareholders' goals. He could have framed it in a whole different ways. But the moment he says something like the expectation is around weekend work and working people really hard, I'd be going, are we just leading ourselves down some type of WHS issue?
Well, undoubtedly you will.
And what's more, WHS is not an issue for the CEO because he's not a bloody director. But WHS is an issue for the directors because they got legal liability. I can't believe CEOs get let off the leash like that to make dumbass comments. You can think that all you like, but just don't go and say it, you clown.
So tears up the playbook. Here we go. It's the Financial Review, August 11. So today, the fin, as those so into it would call it. It's not the Financial Review, David. It's the fin. So anyway, Westpac Chief Executive Anthony Miller is pushing for a broad cultural overhaul at the major bank, demanding meetings be kept brief. That's a tick.
Yeah.
Because I thought, when I read that, I thought we're off the flyer. Asking staff to come in on weekends, cross. And telling employees he even works on Christmas Day in a reversal of the cautious approach at the company's biggest lender in years since the Financial Services Royal Commission. Why would you be saying you work Christmas?
Again, like what? Like, again, Dave, we're assuming the CEO is an intelligent guy, right?
We're assuming. Assumption. Sure. Assume makes no sense.
Typically, how these things work in these big companies, there's a whole lot of people who make sure they're not going to go off track when they're interviewing, right? But if he's been given the okay to effectively go and say, well, I'll be working Christmas Day out loud on the Fin Review, what are all these people thinking?
Correct. And there's a few things. Let's start with just that before I go into the sickness of everything else.
I'm flabbergasted. I cannot believe.
You know what I'd like to see right now?
Of one of the top four banks has been allowed to come out and say, I'm working Christmas Day and that's the expectation, is it? What a clown.
Well, he says, I work Christmas Day. There's no comment to say I expect others.
Yeah,
but why would you say it? Which is the implied nature is, well, if I am, you can.
Yeah.
Now, before we even go into clearly this guy's going to create a very sick culture at Westpac. But let's start with, so what he's saying is, to all my Westpac customers that are Christian and hold Christian values, fuck you. That's number one. Then he's also saying to me, well, does that mean you're going to ask all your Islamic staff to come in on Ramadan? Or your Indian staff to come in on Diwali? Like, are you just going to shitbag everyone's faith and religious belief because work is the preeminent? Like, that comment alone, if I was the board, I would already be going, what's it going to cost us to pay him out? Go. Before anything else, right? Because that is such a major insult. And don't get me wrong, I don't know if there's Ganesha. I don't know if there's Muhammad. I don't know if there's Jesus Christ. I don't know if there's Buddha. I hold my views. I can't prove or disprove anyone else wrong. But I respect, and it's a United Nations human right to respect people's religion. And here's a CEO of Westpac coming out and saying that.
But it's also shitbagging the last 10 years. Because he's saying he wants to reframe the culture, this cautious culture. So now he's going all in. Is it some type of, results at all costs?
Sounds like it.
I've lived it. I've seen it. I've felt it. And it ends up being, what have you done for me in the past 3 minutes on a spin cycle for a 5-year period?
Actually, let me just, before we go too deep into this episode, because everyone knows it's all about Dave episodes, because they're in my wheelhouse. I'm going to attempt, no promise, to say the least amount I can in this episode, because this is in your wheelhouse. Because I've worked corporate, but I got out really quick because I saw the sickness, but you've lived it for a long time. So this episode shall be sub-known as It's All About Tone.
So when Dave says he's going to speak the least on this episode, that means only 50 of the 55 minutes? Because normally he's 50
I'll
plus.
Give you 49.
Wow. So that leads itself to, the thing is, Dave, in the right environment, when you've got commitments and you've got a big mortgage and you've got some kids you want to put through school and you're in an environment where the guy next to you is going hard and he's got the same issues. And then there's a woman next to you as well who's got some young kids and she's going hard as well. She's at the same level and you're all going hard together because you want to achieve, because you take pride in your performance and you want to deliver and you don't want to let people down. You can thrive in that type of environment, but it does burn you out eventually. And that's what it leads to when you've got people, the CEO making comments like that. At some point, people will burn out. And his approach has got to be, is turnover going to go, is the turnover rate going to increase? Or if he wants to get that level of commitment and that level of productivity from employees, I'd be saying he should be setting aside a fair bit of money in terms of provisions for bonuses to be buying people, just put up and deal with it. right? So then you're going to be in an environment where the culture is, shut up, deal with it. Someone else will deal with it, and I'm paying you a big bonus, right?
Which is unhealthy.
And then what does that lead to, Dave? Because if it all becomes about the incentives, right? Surely to goodness, in a banking environment, would they ever do anything scrupulous, Dave, to potentially, push the profit margins into the zone where they get a bigger kicker in their incentive? That wouldn't happen, would it, Dave?
Now, let me give you a story on bonuses to reinforce your position of what this incentivizes. When I was a first-year apprentice, the guy I was working for...
Did you have hair back then?
I can't guarantee it, but I think I did.
Okay.
No, it's 35 years ago. I think I did. I think there's photos floating around somewhere. So this guy came up with this. So I'll give a backstory because it's a bit relevant to how it comes to be. So the guy that's the manager that trains me, that ends up my business partner, he had trained this guy. He was the master craftsman to this apprentice. When this apprentice finishes his trade, this guy sells him the shop, goes traveling Australia with his family. When he comes back, the shop's in real trouble. He asks him to come back to fix it. He goes back, because all the staff have left, gets staff back, gets the business running. Then he asks him to open up other shops for him. So he ends up with like franchising in these barbershops. So at one point is when he starts hitting 6, 7, 8 barbershops. He comes up with this scheme that he's going to start paying people bonuses based on the number of haircuts they do. So for example, if you're a tradesman, X number in a week. If you're a fourth-year apprentice, third year, second, so on and so forth. So anyway, the advice to him is don't do it. If you think you've got good staff producing good work, doing more haircuts, pay them more money. He said, no, this will work. So anyway, he implements this scheme. At the end of the first quarter, he says to Paul, he says, told you, Paul, look at it. Look at the numbers are up. After the second quarter, numbers are still up. After the third quarter, a light bulb goes off that the numbers are up, but the dollars aren't. So he asked Paul to go over. There's one particular shop that's worse than others. So he asked Paul to go over and find out what's going on. So Paul goes and works in the shop. And within a day, he works out that what was happening, for example, a haircut and a beard trim at that point, I'm going back 35 years, was like $20. A primary school kid haircut was like $9. And a high school kid was $11. So when they do a haircut and a beard trim, they take the money and they'd ring it up as a $9 or $11 haircut. So they weren't stealing any money, but they turned one haircut into two. As soon as that was established, the bonuses were stopped. The other thing that was happening too is, say on a Saturday, for a figure, let's say your bonus kicked in at 75 haircuts and there was half hour to go and you were on 71 haircuts. You weren't going to do 4 haircuts in the last half hour. But if your mate was on 74 haircuts and you're doing a haircut, they would ring it up under their mate. So he'd get to 75, he'd get his bonus, and one of two things happened. Either they'd give him a kickback out of the bonus they got, or the following week, if you're in the same position, they'd return the favor. So what it did was incentivized
poor behavior.
Theft, really.
That's right, yeah.
That's right. So this is what's going to happen in this situation with the banks, and we've seen it. And the other problem with bonuses in, say, a banking situation is often it becomes pretty consistent. So this year you got a $100,000 bonus, the next year $100,000, next year $100,000. So people stop forgetting it's a bonus and think, oh, 150 base and my 100 bonus, I get 250 a year, because it's happened 4 years in a row. And the fifth year, something goes wrong, but their lifestyle needs the 250. So that's where they're more inclined to start doing something dodgy and cut the corners to ensure they get their bonus.
Absolutely. And Dave, but even culturally as well, like the values that underpin that, like dog eat dog, push the envelope a little bit closer to the edge to squeeze out a bit more margin, to squeeze out a bit more incentive. It's not sustainable, right? It ends up eating itself, because at some point someone does something dumb and the house of cards falls over. And we've seen that. We've seen it happen, right?
Well, that's what led to the GFC.
That's right. Like, let's all package up some, triple C rated loans, call them some type of security instrument to get people to invest in it. What could possibly go wrong? But all the money, those incentives were paid to the people who did the deal. And again, we spoke about this the other week, Dave, socializing losses, privatizing profits, right? And that's the same type of thing that could happen. So these values, or the values that will be born out in this particular situation, and it's not all banks, I'm not saying all banks do this, but the behaviors that it will drive, focus on self-interest, right? And focus on how can I get myself further ahead, right? And then as you continue to invest in that type of system, the alignment between the individual goals and the corporate goals grow further and further apart, right? And then the behaviors that underpin each of those are even further apart than that.
Well, what I see in this guy is at every level, his attitude and leadership is making everyone sick. Because the first thing is either to work Christmas, it means he's got no family, no one to see, or if he does, they're not his priority. So that's not good. His expectations of the staff that come through, he's going to have the same attitude towards them.
It's Dave. It's cascading.
Yeah.
It's CEO. It's EGMs. Yep. It's GMs. It's all the way down.
And what he represents to me is it's never enough, right? Because I dare say, what would the CEO of Westpac be on? 5 million, 10 million a year?
Maybe, yeah.
Give or take. To me, what it should be is a steady hand. Yep, try and find some efficiencies, maybe some new product that is not compliant, but the right thing to do, that there's a win-win. You know, the customers are winning from whatever product you've got, you're making some margin. But for me, it's like never enough. It's that whole thing that, let's hypothetically speaking, say in the first 3 years, assuming he lasts that long, because as I said, to me, he really or he should be arseholed. But let's say he gets 3 years in and Westpac profit, which is already at record, Westpac profit suddenly increases 10%. And what's it at the end of 3 years? Okay, next 3, I want 12. And at the end of that 3, if you got, why is it like it? It's just never enough. At what point? And this is something where when we lost a lot of the family businesses, the mum and dad businesses, there was a different attitude, because those people that started from nothing, that had 100 staff, 50 staff, 20 staff, 5,000 staff, what their goal was to maintain profitability while maintaining jobs and consistent wage growth for their staff so that everyone was a winner. That's not what happens in these organizations. This guy here, he couldn't care if his staff turnover was 100% in the next 3 years. If he could say to the board and to the shareholders, I've increased margin by 5%, profitability by 10.
Right.
And that's sick.
I think to your point, now the bank in question about the book record profits or have book record profits, the issue is, right, they spin themselves in, right, to a massive, massive issue because they keep on chasing CBA, right? They see the CBA share price, they see the performance of that bank, and Westpac just spin themselves in a circle saying, how do we get there? How do we get there? Now they're taking a different tack. They bring this guy on. He's going to change this. He's going to change that. Here's the expectation. We're going to out the window with this cautious approach, and we're going to try and take on the big bank down the street. But at what cost? So, Dave, you spoke around the impact that it has on workers and stress levels. Talk about some of the other societal impacts. So you've got people who are stretched, people who have got young families, who are well paid, who are incentivized, right? What about anxiety? What about depression, right? Who's responsible for that? Or is it just a matter of just toughening up and dealing with it?
Well, I think I don't want to absolve people from individual responsibility and accountability either, right? No one to defend this CEO that to me is off to a bad start. He doesn't come and kick your front door in, stick a gun in your mouth and say you will borrow $2 million.
Yeah.
Right. So at the end of the day, it is personal choice. However, again, using what I've mentioned before, 50% of the population fall below an average IQ, and those that just fall over the other side aren't exactly Einstein. Those people trust institutions. When they go to the bank and they want their first home, they want a larger home for a growing family, they're trusting you. If the computer says we can lend you $1.5 million, they've trusted that you know what you're doing. You've done the calculations. You're taking the risk to lend to them. So they have complete faith. Now, we've seen what's happened because people shouldn't have complete faith, because if the bank says they can lend you for a figure 1.5, you should be taking a third off it. Start smaller, take smaller bites. But they are trusting you. So when you've got a CEO like this, that clearly what's implied from these comments, assuming that the financial review hasn't misquoted or misrepresented, that to me says you don't care about those people.
Yep.
If you can get them at maximum, if you can up their mortgages, if you can get them into investment loans, if you can do anything that, it doesn't matter if suddenly they've got to take on another shift each, if suddenly they're cutting back on the food they're giving their kids, if suddenly they're cutting back on the time of their kids, you don't care. You don't care. And you don't care because you don't care about Christmas. So you couldn't care whether your staff are with their family at Christmas. So what would you care if there's nothing under the Christmas tree, as long as the margins and the profitability of Westpac go through the roof?
Oh, no.
To me, you think it winds you up. It really winds me up, because these are the people that are making society sick.
Yeah. And I think so. We've given the big red W a bit of a kicking, right? Yeah. But there's other examples as well. It's like increasingly, Dave.
Can't we just keep kicking?
When was the first time, Dave, you heard about the gig economy? Or, Dave, I've got myself, hang on, I'm about to shoot myself in the foot here. I was just about to have a go at people for having a side hustle when I thought to myself, what's this, Dave?
Yeah, but our side hustle isn't to make money.
Yeah, that's right.
Our side hustle is just to
make
give
a
all
load of money.
Our side hustle is just to give everyone all the opinions that I have stuck inside me.
That's right. So the gig economy, the side hustle, all these like every time I see.
Why do people need a side hustle? And why do we have a gig economy? Because people can't make it off one wage.
But really, it doesn't irk me. It just disappoints me as a society when I see all these Uber Eats drivers flying around on these little scooter things, delivering stuff. I'm thinking, well, what options have they got? They're typically new. Like
they're student visa holders. Right. And that's all they do. They come here and they work here.
I've got no idea what they're on, right? But there's been other examples, Dave. So in the US, there's been some publicity over a long time about Amazon and the expectations they've got of their people, right? And how they get squeezed really hard. And I'm talking about the people working in factories.
Yeah.
So it's not unique to Australia, right?
Yeah, those people working in factories aren't, on the tennis table and at the cafeteria and having all the cruisy afternoons, the liquid lunches, and all the benefits everyone else is getting in the office world.
No. So they're really sweating. And then, but at the other end of the scale, when you talk about the outcomes of poor behaviour, you've got the PwC Australia scandal in Australia, where poor corporate behaviour, where they're literally playing off the ATO and clients against each other and betting on both sides. How good?
And this gets, how many times have I got to say it, right? There's a difference between what is legally compliant and what is right. What we need is leaders in the world that start saying when someone comes to them with something. So, for example, this CEO, that shouldn't have been his idea or his statement on the Christmas, right? What that should have been, as an example, is someone below him comes to him with an idea how we're going to do things. And he says, if we come in at Christmas, we get some people in at weekend, we can start getting through more work. Here's the product we can start to create and we can push out. And then that CEO says, do you think that's the right thing to do? Do you think people should be working on Christmas? Do you think that undermines our culture? Do you think that sets a good standard for Westpac? That's the conversation it should have had from him as a CEO, letting someone below him know we don't do that. I know we can do that, but we don't do it. It shouldn't be coming from the top, which tells me the longer this guy's in the position, as they say, that the fish rots from the head, the longer he's in that position, I would bet my bald head at some point the board is going to have a big problem on its hands and they're going to have high turnover. They're going to have a union issue. They're going to have a work health and safety issue because this guy is really a loose cannon.
Yeah, I agree.
Very self-centered.
I agree. So, Dave, I'm going to throw some questions out to you and then have a bit of a chat about each one. Are we normalising unhealthy corporate behaviours in society? I think we are. And let's just extend this, Dave. There's a corporate expectation of people, their work patterns, go the extra mile, squeeze a little bit harder. Let's extend the conversation to, what about, Dave, and this is one that's always irked me, the fact that corporates and their values that they put up on nice posters, right?
They never live them.
Are the expectation that, John Smith, who works at whatever corporate, he will live those values in all parts of his life. Like, who is a corporate to dictate the values that I should have as a person?
I agree totally. This is the big mistake that the corporates in Australia made with the voice referendum, right? They jumped on board thinking they were on the winning side. And I had conversations with, I'll use Qantas as an example. Qantas came out as if they were on board with everything, and that was just the position of Qantas, and everyone worked there. And the same with the same-sex marriage debate. And I had conversations with people, for example, that were strongly religious and said, these aren't my values, or I don't agree with this. Yet I've got to, I catch the train home. I'm in a Qantas uniform, and it's implied that the values that Qantas are putting out is everything that I stand for. So to me, I'm of the view that it's time for corporates. Two things. Firstly, they're hypocrites, right? Because you do all this fluffy stuff for your CSR and look what we do, but you are screwing people over. You are screwing over society and doing all sorts of wrong things like Banking Royal Commission. But to me, it's time corporates get back to, if you sell cars, sell me the car. You sell airline tickets, sell me the ticket. I don't want to hear about the values of your organization. What I care about is the product or service I've engaged you for. Is it the best available for the money I'm prepared to pay in the marketplace? And am I getting the service I deserve?
I agree. And I'd extend that, Dave. I'd say, are you delivering a product at the right price point, right? And the right add-ons and everything else? Internally, are you an ethical organization doing the right thing, right?
Yeah,
and then
often no.
If I'm an employer, I would just say to Dave and the 50 other salesmen all trying to sell me that car, listen, how you interact between each other, here's a set of guidelines, a set of rules, right? Don't be a dickhead, respect each other, respect customers, and that's it. But don't put up posters around accountability, service, collaboration, integrity, right? And put them everywhere and then go into a meeting and people are fucking teeing off on each other, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not living it.
Just don't do it. I think that's one of the big failings where corporates have gone so big in terms of the values that underpinned all their behaviors, and they try and actually broaden that as much as they can around how people, like if my Facebook account had a whole lot of shit that went against the values of a company I used to work for, potentially I'm screwed.
Correct.
And that doesn't impact in any way my ability to do my job. I'm very uncomfortable with that.
Well, this gets to the point when we had the Israel Folau situation with his private comment or public comments as a private citizen. They weren't during work time. He didn't say, I'm a representative of the Wallabies. And everyone was saying, oh, these are the values of the Wallabies. That's like, well, they're the values of the Wallabies at the workplace. And then you start to get people say he's paid a lot of money. And I'd say, well, what's a lot of money? And they go, well, $1 million. I said, okay, so someone can take $999,999 and they can have an opinion because that's less money. Like this concept of, oh, we pay them a lot of money, therefore we own them 24/7. It's like, no, they're two totally separate things. Is someone doing their job properly? Are they engaging with their colleagues reasonably? Because that's the other thing too, this false corporate culture. So I've seen people that, they're the complete opposite of who they are. Out in the street, they'll be, yeah, mate, fuck this, blah, blah, she's a bitch, she's a bastard. And say, oh, yes, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'd like to thank Sarah for bringing that up, and we'll circle back on that one. And it's like, who are you? You're putting on this persona Monday or Friday night, and aren't you meant to be just doing what your job is? You're the bean counter, you're the IT guy, you're the legal, whatever it is. Aren't you meant to be in that meeting and putting forward the issues that you see as it relates to whatever the meeting is you're having? And that's it.
I know.
You don't need to pretend.
Because I think a lot of these values, Dave, that have been born out of corporates have led either directly or indirectly to what we call cancel culture now, right? Where someone literally gets cancelled for taking a position that's either in contrast or kind of against what their company position might be, and then they get outed for it, and all of a sudden they're gone. They're waste bin. See you later. And
the big example of that will be, say, COVID, right? That's the most obvious. Let's use COVID. So the corporates that were sacking people or were forcing people into getting the jab, have you rehired them? Have you apologized? Have you paid compensation to them? The dangers I see is it's meant to be like using the term benchmarking in corporate. So those in our industry will benchmark, where are we with best practice? I'm fine with that. But you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that it's not best practice. It's like every CEO is looking around. What are they doing? That's what we got. Oh, you got transflag. Oh, they're making everyone get a jab for COVID. Everyone gets a jab. It's like, where are the leaders? How are you a leader if you just wait for someone to do something and then we all follow in lockstep? To me, that's the other issue of corporate. How is it that every corporation has the same crap, the same events on, the same positions. That doesn't make sense because to me in society, we don't all agree. You could have two more guys here and we'd all discuss who do we think should be the Kangaroos starting side. Yeah, who do we think is going to win the NRL? Who do you think is going to win the F1? You wouldn't get agreement. So how did we suddenly get all this agreement on all these social issues across every CEO in all of Western society?
Yeah.
Which again, to me, because we've got too many people like this clown going into Westpac here, that they're not leaders. That's not a guy that you want in charge. That's a guy that wants to be the CEO for himself. He wants to leave a legacy of look at how I increased margin and look at the money I made. Too inward looking. The irony for me is the best leaders are those that don't want to be leaders. So they get pushed into it, fall into it. Not the ones, pick me, pick me, pick me.
I'm hearing you, Dave. So Dave, let's we touched on hustle culture, side gigs. We've spoken about the always on emails. Right?
Well, the corporate culture also extends to like social media, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because the social media just keep getting into people's get our product 24/7.
But if like the data tells us that people are burnt out more than ever, there's high levels of depression and anxiety, but there's a constant need to keep on pushing in your role to achieve whatever you need to achieve. How do we unravel ourselves out of this, Dave?
Good question. Let's start with, and this is not directly just corporate, but this would probably be something across the board that would impact a lot of big corporations. The first thing I would do in Australia, it could apply around the world, but in Australia, I'd remove 7-day trading. So I'd go back to everything's closed on a Sunday because the whole concept of the Sunday trading used to be, because obviously you go get it more conveniently in a world where you can online shop. On Sunday, you could still jump online to Woolworths and I'll deliver it tomorrow morning anyway. Or you can't be planned to just have enough to cover one day off. That'd be a starting point for me because what that did, when you had Sunday off, it was an equalizer. Now, notwithstanding some emergency services and the like, it meant the High Court judge was off on Sunday with his family and the garbage collector was off on Sunday with his family. So it was an equalizer. So that'd be a starting point of something I would do. And then certainly the right to disconnect stuff. But the other thing here, a bit like some of our other episodes where, are you a citizen or a consumer? A lot of this comes back to individual choice too, because I've ripped shreds off this CEO. But the reality is, if you put yourself in a position that you think your life only has meaning if you're making 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 and the kids are at Joey's and Barker and Shaw, and then you're under pressure, again, he didn't come and stick the gun in your mouth. That was your individual choice to do it. So the individuals need to start to reassess and say, is this what's important to me? Because for me, I have zero issue with someone that makes $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, right? Because there are naturally people within our society that are smarter, are more capable, and they're wired that way, right? So this CEO, maybe he doesn't have family. Maybe he's just wired that way for just work. So it's not meant to be something that became all of society were being told and pushed and driven towards getting out of your $90,000, $100,000 a year job to chase 250, 300, 400, 500. So knowing your own limitations as well as knowing your own desires of what you want and what matters, those things are within your control. So if this guy, starts pushing you and more, and you think, oh yeah, I can get $100,000 bonus, don't complain because you have a choice. You can walk away and get out of it. And I know there are complications and things that go on with that. But again, this is all part of getting back to thinking when you're in your sort of mid to late 20s, early 30s. These are decisions that you need to get right, or you'll entrap yourself that you will end up being the slave of this CEO because you'll have $150,000 a year school bill, you'll have a $200,000 a year mortgage, so on and so forth. And just tangentially on that school stuff, this is old data. I haven't seen it for a while, but when I was at the University of Sydney, the data was you're more likely to fail your first year of university if you're out of one of the GPS schools than a public school. And people used to get shocked when I tell them that because they're thinking, oh, but little Jonathan is far more advanced than the public school student. But it wasn't to do with their education. It was to do with their ability to take control of their own life because they weren't getting babied and reminded, oh, you've got 2 days until it's due, pat you on the bum. So suddenly you get to uni, lecturer gives a lecture, tutor does a tutorial, your work's due on that date. It's not up to everyone else to baby you and chase you. So that was what was causing the fail rates.
I think touch on a good point, Dave, around the overwork is in many cases an individual choice. So employees have got to set boundaries. But to your point, people feel locked in because they're chasing something, right? So we've got to reset our expectations as individuals in terms of what's good for us, right? Now, when you have a little health scare in your early 50s,
it's a good reminder.
God or whoever else is up there sends you a slap in the face and goes, just remember, Tony, what's important.
If you eat first,
you're last. That's right. That's right. So I think that's important to note that individuals can set boundaries now, but a lot of companies are doing good stuff, Dave, in terms of well-being, in terms of, promoting a work-life balance. I actually think the working from home piece, in a lot of ways, has improved people's ability to manage their lives outside of the work, which is great. But at the same time, Dave, I don't know, fact, or maybe I hear it more because it's from big companies. A lot of these big companies who should really be benefiting from the increased productivity and better employee engagement from working 3 days a week at home are the same big companies who are saying, okay, the gig's over.
Correct.
Time to come back to work, which for me, again, just does not make sense. Hire the right people who you can trust to do the job in Dubbo, Orange, North Queensland, Fiji Island or Tahiti, and just pay them what they're worth and get on with it.
Correct. The Mauritian Queen loves working from home. For her, I don't cook. I do the dishes, do the cleaning, things like that. So for her, the fact that she can finish it, start at, say, 7 and finish at 4, and then just walk down the hall and start cooking and doing everything, it's unbelievable what it does. But that's what I find ironic too, is when companies talk about, oh, we have a good employee assistance program, we're here for your mental health. You know what? In my experience, as a stab, I'd say I wouldn't be far off. 75% of people's mental health issues emanate from work.
Yeah.
So you cause it, and then you think, oh, we've got a good employee assistance program. It's like, dude, people are struggling in a cost of living crisis, and you're telling them to either drop $100 a week on tolls or $70 a week on public transport and lose another hour each way each day just so you can stand and look at them down the floor on the office. For me, it's 3 things. And I know there's always going to be variables. Some jobs you need to be there more. But what is it? What are your expectations, right? So what's the work, the expectations? What's the quality standards of that work? And when's it due? And if people are hitting your quality standards, people are hitting your timelines, the work's being done, who cares where it's being done? I actually worked, as you know, and the listeners, I worked for Aramco, and here's the madness. I was my role was to look after students that are across Australia and all my teams across the Far East. So I would be expected to go to Martin Place and sit in an office to then email, text, and call Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane, Perth, Singapore, Tokyo, Dammam in Saudi Arabia. It was insane. It was like, so I can't do this from anywhere else. And that one of the problems, it's been 16 months, they still haven't replaced me, and they won't be able to, not because I'm great. It's not that. It's how they run things. No one's attracted to the role, and everyone that's any good calls me and asks anyway. But I find it ironic that corporates create the problems that they then think they're solving.
I know. Like, I know that in my current role, I'm very fortunate. I can work flexibly. I could work 5 days at home and no one would batter an eyelid. I actually work 4 days in the office because I enjoy it. Right, I like engaging with people. It gets me out. It gets me out of the place 4 out of 5 days. It's fantastic. But on that 5th day, the flexibility that it gives me to get stuff done, right, makes my weekend so much easier. Right.
Correct.
It's in my mind, I'm thinking, I could probably get another job. I'm 4 years into this gig. I should probably find something else, maybe a bit more of a challenge, maybe a bit more money. I'm going, what am I chasing? As you've often said to me, what am I chasing, right?
Correct.
I've got that ticks a lot of boxes. It lets me do what I want to do. And I think that's what companies should be encouraging. Policies that make people feel good about the job that they're doing. They're doing it at the right standard. They're doing it on time. But at the same time, it's not compromising their role as dad, wife, mum, granddaughter, or whatever it might be.
There's all sorts of other peripheral issues too. Is if everyone's back on the road, That means deliveries take longer. Tradesmen get less work done the day. We're all stuck. So it means we're paying more for things on the periphery. So it makes no sense to, unless you have a job, excuse me, unless you have a job that you actually cannot perform the duties without being on site. I think it's nonsensical. But it's, to me, that there's too much in corporate that's performative today. Everything's a performance, and all those values that, as you mentioned, that people are meant to buy into and meant to hold and meant to live throughout their life. Again, a lot of it's performative.
Yeah.
Because when you think of the corporate world and you think of how people behave, when you step outside, is that how people are on the street?
No.
If you go to the football, you're walking down the street, is that how they talk? Is that how they engage with each other? It's such a false world. It does not surprise me that people in corporate have such high rates of anxiety, depression, so on and so forth, because what you're actually doing is you're being forced to go on to pretend to be someone you're not, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5.
I'm hearing you. So, Dave, in terms of these corporate KPIs, think about some of the spillover that happened. So increasingly in the past 20, 25 years, KPIs are now used to measure effectiveness of education, healthcare, right? There's a bit of a spillover into these other areas where, there's performance metrics that are hard performance metrics and you have to deliver.
Yeah, I'm still of the view that, and I don't necessarily have an issue that there are things that you use to measure performance, right? Because at the end of the day, I just laid out how I would measure it.
Yeah.
That's a KPI. Here's the work that you've got to get done. Here's the quality. So are you hitting that KPI? And here's the timeline, right? So KPIs in and of themselves are not necessarily a problem. It's the falseness around the performance review of the KPI. So, for example, you have issues with one of two things. Either managers are reviewing people based on that KPI, even though often the manager is the problem. You have poor managers and you don't have a 360 review, or you have a 360 review and you get managers that turn and go, look, I'm going to give you all a bad review if you give me one. So then it becomes false anyway. And the other thing is, to me, because I remember having this when I had a performance review, and someone said, "Oh, you've got to mark down what you did." And I did, the minimum. And they said, "You also did this, 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 and this." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, put that on there." I said, "Well, two things. One is, why am I meant to go tell you how wonderful I am? I just do my job. You're my manager. You've just pointed out, I've done that because you've pointed out that it's not on my performance review. So why do I need to do it? As a manager, don't you know what I do?"
Yeah.
Like, what kind of manager are you that you don't know what your team's doing, that you need it written down? Then the next thing is also that falseness of where you'll get, what are your goals for the next year? And give us one from each category, one from culture and one from improved process. And when you've been around long enough, how do you every year just come up with this bullshit? Oh, this is my goals for the next year.
Like,
what my goal is? In all honesty, I tell you, if you said to people in corporate, you said, what I want for your performance review, I want complete and total honesty, and there'll be no ramification for what you say. What are your goals? Do my job, get paid, go home. That would be 75% of people.
No. Wake up, piss excellence, do your job, get paid, go home.
But only Ricky Bobby can put that, and the Mauritian Queen.
That's right.
But
so
you know what I mean? That's true, isn't it? That's what most people, what are your goals? Most people don't have goals. They're not looking to become the CEO. Most people, I get fucking paid and I pay my mortgage and I fight with my wife and I look after the kids.
There's this whole HR thing because, we want to put people on an accelerated program, and they've got to realize in any team, Dave, there are superstars, right, who are going to disproportionately impact whether you win or lose.
Well, the
right?
Pareto distribution already shows
I know
20% of people do 90% of the work.
But then there's also going to be role players, right, who know exactly, they come in, they turn the handle every day, they turn it really well. You can rely on them 100%. They're never going to be a star, but they're going to be there. They're happy doing that. And you know what, when you ask them, but don't you want to go to a bigger machine and turn a handle? No, I'm happy turning the handle on this machine.
Correct.
And you can rely on, and that's fine, right? But everyone gets sucked up in this KPI environment. Everyone gets sucked up with the development plan. And then it becomes this constant need to bigger, better. And that drives all the way up to the CEO, Dave, right? And then what ends up happening in this culture, what over the last 15, 20 years, the explosion in pay differential between the highest paid in an organization and the lowest paid, right?
It's like gone up. It used to be, what was the average? 6 to 10x, and it's like 50 to 100.
Right. So it's completely exploded out of all proportion.
Because one of the things I think, and this is to me the Alan Joyce model of CEOing, we just don't replace plant and equipment, and we cut jobs and wages.
Yeah. And
that's not good. Any good leader.
And then we touched on this a few episodes ago as well. So this corporate culture, this KPI driven, where we always want more. What's it drive, Dave? It drives hyper consumerism, right?
Yep.
And overconsumption, right?
Yep.
No, I'm getting paid more. No, I know I'm getting another $100,000 in September.
Yep.
You know what you should do? You should probably put that on the mortgage. No. I need my new 5 Series, right?
Yep.
Oh, but the 5 Series you got now is only 2 years old with 40,000 clicks on it. But have you seen the new one? And that's what this drives, Dave. And unless you really check yourself to make sure that you're doing the right things that are going to lead to a better life when you're 55, 60, 65, you get caught up in that spiral. And we're just talking financial, Dave. In that hyper-driven environment where you're looking to succeed and you're looking to get ahead, sometimes you can stray, right?
Well, actually, I remember the other thing, and here's another problem, because I literally got told this when I was at University of Sydney, because speaking of opinions, I've got a couple.
Can you give me the first one with the token Donnie?
Well, Tony, I was talking to a director, a bad director, very bad person. And the person said, Donnie/Dave, if you just say this and you just say that, you'll climb the greasy pole. And I said, I'd prefer be honest and get paid what I get paid than tell lies and get myself a title. So I'll never be the president of the United States.
But, I literally got told that. Like, it was as the wind was changing, for example, and the whole pronoun stuff and things like that. I literally had a director go, Dave, you'll go far. Just say this, just say that. I'm like, but that's not true. She goes, it doesn't matter. It's not true. Just say it and I'm like, wow. And people do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is not a new phenomenon, because in Nazi Germany, when the Nazis came to power, there were people that started to join the Nazi party and make sure they had the badge to wear. And it came about from 3 things. There were the opportunists, well, probably 4. There were the hardcore that genuine were the Nazis and believed in the cause. There were the opportunists that thought, if I get in, it will, I'll be able to make money, I'll get contracts, I'll get whatever, all those 3. And then the third type were those that were like, just, don't attack me. I'm part of the party, so don't attack me. And I hate that aspect of humanity, that people will lie. They'll say things they know are untrue. They don't care as long as it's going to get them. And this gets back to our last episode, but it's the yes men thing, right?
Yeah.
The border's not secure, but you'll say it.
Yeah.
Something's not working in the Trump administration, but you'll say it is. This is just a human flaw. As long as I climb the ladder, I'll say any bullshit that's needed to be said. So and I can't do that.
So we started with...
That's why I'm still sweeping.
That's right. We started with this corporate culture making society sick. But Dave, corporate culture, can I touch it? Can I feel it? So let me put something out to you.
Corporate culture, and feel me anytime you want to.
Corporate culture is not the villain, right? It's a tool and reflects the thoughts and the processes, leaders and governance processes. So corporate culture is just a byproduct of the people leading. They're actually people making these decisions who are saying, yep, we believe in this culture and these values and these behaviors. So corporate culture in and itself is not the issue. It's just a byproduct of the leaders of organizations at different times taking their organizations down certain paths. And then corporate culture in the right way could actually be a force of progress. But what do you say to the point that it's actually not culture that's the issue, it's the people, the leaders who actually drive that culture?
Well, your corporate culture can be a positive thing, but I don't think your focus in corporate should be, your social responsibility. Yeah. To me, as a small business owner, as someone that's had staff, trained up staff, and I don't mean staff under me that, University of Sydney or I'm talking about people, money out of my pocket, training people, my blood, sweat, tears. Any business owner worth their salt actually knows inherently that if you treat people bad, you lose them. And if you don't have staff doing good work, you don't make money. It really is that simple. One of the problems I think we have in corporate is there are people without skin in the game. Now, I know they say, oh, they're on incentives for shares. That's not skin in the game. I'm talking about that losses are your losses, not you missed a bonus. To me, I'd prefer see something you want to get the best out of CEOs. You want to get people to actually care about your staff as well as your customers. Turn around and tie it to something. You say, no, you're not tied to share bonus. You're not having this, that, and the other. We're just going to pay you a good salary. And if we see you underperforming, your salary will be cut. So you've actually got genuine, not it's 5 million no matter what. And the bonus, it could be 5 million. We could cut you down to 1 because you've turned around and there's been like, who's ever had a loss? Like you've run a company in the ground, they give you a golden handshake.
Yep.
They literally on the way out the door, here's some more money.
Yeah, I get
Like,
it.
what was Alan Joyce's $20 million or $17 million or something? And he drove the company into the ground.
So where have we landed today? So it's pretty clear. So you and I agree, which is really unsettling for me. Corporate culture, it's obsessed with profits, KPIs, this continual drive, but the direct consequence of that is some impacts for society around individuals, stress, overconsumption, anxiety to some extent, and to be honest, it leads to what we could label ethical compromises, right? So overall, the wrong corporate culture leads to a whole lot of bad outcomes. So it needs to be tightly controlled in terms of what they're trying to achieve.
Well, I think again, this is one of those things that the individual can play a role in changing, because if we turn around and we don't patronize businesses that we think are doing the wrong thing, and we're seeing this happen. I know, for example, like you've seen Jaguar recently, and the corporate culture there turned very woke. So there was a whole rebadge of Jaguar, and they released an ad that had no car in it whatsoever, and just had non-binaries and trans. It's the weirdest ad you'd ever see for a car. It looked more like an ad for a museum's contemporary art display. And of course, the CEO there, when everyone pushed back and saying this is rubbish, this is woke, what is this, was so arrogant to tell people. He literally said, "We don't care. We don't care. We're going into a new market, not worried about the past." Well, sales dropped 97.5%, and he resigned last week. So it's that type of arrogance too that I can't believe. And we saw this with Bud Light. I remember seeing the head of marketing of Bud Light saying, "Oh, Bud Light's very fratty and it's very male, and yeah, that's old and it's time to change it." I'm thinking to myself, wow.
What did they change it to?
They turned around and they used Dylan Mulvaney, who pretends he's a woman, and put him, sent him cans on the anniversary of his 365 days of being a woman. Who wasn't a woman. He's a gay guy that prances around pretending he's a woman. And sales went through the floor. And I remember doing my business degree, some of the early stuff they'd tell you is, at that time, it was like you spend $6 to the dollar attracting new clients as opposed to retaining existing ones. So on that basis, that means if you're going to throw out every person that you think is fratty drinking Bud Light, which by your own admission is your entire market.
You just increase your cost base by 600%.
Yep, just to get break even.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're still not back to break even the damage it's done. So what's now going to happen with Jaguar? So this sort of corporate culture too, and there's too many CEOs that are jumping on these bandwagons of what's society doing, and that gets back to our point earlier in the episode, which is just run your company. Don't worry about what society's doing. There's society issues for politics and whatnot. Your business is your business.
Good products, right?
Yep.
At a reasonable price. Good service, right? The shareholders making their return, and generally speaking, competent, well-trained staff who are engaged in what you're trying to do, and they're rewarded for it.
Simple,
right?
Simples.
Can't be that hard.
Compels the market.
Now,
Simples.
I am going to get the guys here at Mic'd Up to actually do a bit of maths for me on this episode, because you did say that I'd be speaking more on this episode.
Yeah, I did.
And I don't think
you did Tom do the math. I did.
That happened. No. So we're going to come back next week with a bit of a breakdown of what happened.
That was false promise.
I know, but as always, Dave, what do we say here at Right to Be Wrong?
You have a right to be wrong.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and we hope you enjoyed it. Like us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thank you for listening to this episode, and we hope you enjoyed it. Like us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.